Okay. I'm kidding. Hi, guys. My name is Connor. I am a senior studying cybersecurity, and I've recently got up to a pretty goofy project here that I wanted to talk about today. Some of you guys may have seen this show up on this YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago. I had a random live stream going where I was live streaming Counter-Strike, and you could play it through the web browser in the YouTube stream. That is what I want to talk about here today. So, in how I did this, I created a web server that is running from the Counter-Strike Go legacy client. Not just a web page with HTML, but I recreated a server, which all things considered isn't that difficult to do, but the fact that I did it from the Counter-Strike game was pretty interesting. So just to show off the actual functionalities of the game, you see here I have Counter-Strike running, and then I have a server running on localhost port 3001. And when I refresh this page here, you see it loads this. I can press these buttons, and it will play the game. So I set this up as pretty much like a little art project. I hosted this web page, and then I live streamed it, and people could play. And I'm honestly surprised it had 1,500 views, which on a YouTube channel this old was interesting. So, but yeah, I'm making this video today more to for posterity's sake, I guess. A couple of friends have asked about it, and I wanted to, get this out there. But I'm almost making it as a journal for myself to look back on in the future. So, with that, I'm going to now get into some technical details. So if you are, if you were just here to see what this is where you are able to stop watching. So getting into the technical stuff, this is an absolute nightmare. And I did this very horribly. All of the source code will be available in the description if you, for whatever reason, want to set this up yourself. I don't recommend it, but you could. So, how did I do this? Well, I started down this rabbit hole because I was inspired by this YouTuber, Portal Runner. I really like his videos, and he has a video where he turned Portal 2 into a web server. And Portal 2 and Counter-Strike are both run on the Source engine, so, it got my mind kind of running here. One thing of note about Portal Runner's video here is that he uses something called VScript, which you can see here. This is the IDE that he's writing in for VScript, and this is a scripting language that is run on some source game. You can embed this into a map file in source games, which I thought that was interesting and made the code look very nice. You're writing it in an IDE. But I didn't really like that. It was attached. This code, to my knowledge, is attached to a specific map. I didn't want that. I wanted to literally have be able to program a web server from CS:GO, which for the most part I did. So for those of you who are unaware, source games like Counter-Strike have a developer console. You usually have to enable it in the settings, but then you can press the tilde key, and then this little menu would come up. And now this is where you can input commands that correspond to the game. I know that text is really small, but this is stuff where you can run add bots to the current match, give weapon, things like that. It's not a it doesn't use an actual programming language or anything. It doesn't have the features of a programming language. It's just to play the game. So to create a web server from this console took a good bit of duct tape. So there were three main pieces of duct tape that I got into. Firstly, the most important one, Steam Source Engine games from Valve after Left 4 Dead have a specific launch option, which you go to properties, you can see I have selected launch options. I have console to enable the developer console, but more importantly, I have netconport, and then I specify port 3001. What this does is it creates a remotely accessible server for the Source Engine console. So pretty much this, the output on this console gets streamed to a server, which I will show. I can connect here with netcat. So when I connect here with netcat, you can see like I will type in kill, and yeah, and then I will die in CSGO. So this is the most important part. Now that's how the server hosting works from CSGO's side. And then I could hypothetically make this accessible to the public, which I did. But whatever you can do with the server, you can do with this. So now there are two main source engine commands that enable this to happen. The first one here, I can't really see it because I output. Okay, the first one here is the echo command. Echo is really simple. Whenever you run the echo command, it will print something back out into the console. So for example, I go back to this server here, I do echo cat, and it spits cat back out. Yeah, so that is the first part. And you might be able to see where this is going. The second command of importance is alias here. Alias pretty much allows me to give other commands a nickname. So I can, it almost lets me write my own commands. So I can name something whatever I want and then have it run multiple commands. In source engine games, this would be used for if I have, I don't know, in search and destroy for Counter-Strike, you may have a buy setup that you always buy this on whatever round. You could create a single alias that says round 5 buy, and then run that, and it would buy 4 weapons automatically, and you can bind that to a keybind or something like that. I used the alias command with echoes here. That is literally all the 3 of these things, hosting the server externally and then alias and echo. That is literally all there is to this. So just as a couple of showing off some features of alias and echo here. Yeah, I already showed I can echo cat. So I'll now set up an alias. So I will do alias foo, and then that can be echo dog. So what this command is, I'm setting an alias. Now when I run the command foo, it's going to run this command here, which is echo dog. So when I type in foo, dog spits out, okay? Now what I can do is I can create an alias that chains multiple commands together. So I'll do alias bar, and that will be echo ham, echo burger. And you can see how I am separating these with semicolons here in these double quotes. So now when I press enter, I run bar, and you see it runs the echo ham and then the echo burger. The last element to note of these is that you are able to have nested aliases. So you can have foo nested inside, foo and bar nested inside another alias. So I will do alias foo bar, and that will be foo bar. So pretty much now when I run foo bar, it will first run the foo command, foo alias, then it'll run the bar alias. I did that wrong, sorry. Alias foo bar. You gotta do them in quotes. Now, when I run foo bar, you will see it spits out dog hamburger. So that is really all that, that was all that we need from the source engine side. Now it's just getting things to work. So I want you guys to consider for a minute how web browsers work. In your web browser, whenever you go to a web server from your browser, you send a GET request over HTTP. And all that a GET request is a bunch of text that web servers are able to interpret, and then they're able to respond with an HTTP header before responding with the rest of the page's content. So if I were to go into a new tab and then try to access this local host, the CSGO server from my browser, before I had set anything up, and I press enter here, let me show you what comes out in Wireshark here. This is what gets sent in HTTP to Counter-Strike. So you see there's get HTTP 1.1, the host and everything. All of this gets sent as text into the source engine console. So it's pretty much, I try to run the get command, I try to run the HTTP command, I try to run the host command, the local host command, and all of these, none of these are like real things. Let me see if I can actually just pull this up. Yeah, so I'll press enter here, and then you can see in the output, yeah, this is what is important to note, like unknown host connection. All of the HTTP headers are getting interpreted as source engine commands. And as I just showed earlier, we are able to use alias to give these commands meaning, which is what I did. So you may notice the first word in a GET request is the word GET. So I made an alias. Okay, I made an alias in the source engine console that says when, like, you know, the GET command responds with a valid HTTP header. So now I think I'm going to just dive into the source code here and show what is going on. So here's that line, alias get, and then this right here, it echoes over multiple statements here. It echoes an HTML, like or HTTP header, and then an HTML site, a really basic one here. It just has a single header, one line. But yeah, that is all that it is. Once you have this going here, once you have like this part and this extra little echo to add in like extra spacing so that the browser will interpret it properly, you are good to go. You've made your web server in CSGO, and then you can make it serve whatever you like with more nested echo commands. The only thing of note here is this header right here, the content length header. What the content length header is necessary for making CSGO serve web pages properly. To my understanding, thanks to Portal Runner's excellent explanation, which go watch his video because I'm butchering this. In order for a web server to finish sending data, it has to terminate the socket. So pretty much the browser sends the GET request, the server responds with data, and then whenever all of the data is done, the web server says, I've got no more, it will end the socket. And that's what will make stuff pop up on the screen. You can't do that from the CSGO client because there's nothing built in to do that. The only thing you could do is power off your game, which would be less than ideal. So the content length header will specify how many bytes the browser should expect before it stops asking for more and displays on the screen. Now, this gets a little bit strange depending on the browser, because different browsers will interpret content length differently. I know it works great in Chrome. That's the only thing I tested, but I think in Firefox, after you hit the content length, the Firefox will display the HTML on the screen, but it'll keep getting more, and it'll just run forever. So it's kind of weird. I recommend Chrome if you're going to try this on your own, because I know content length works. And also, I got this number from brute forcing. I didn't calculate anything. I just kept changing it until the output looked good. So now, yeah, okay. At this point, we have the static HTML figured out. After I got this far in, I started to write more, and then I realized that the source engine will only allow commands that are so long. And it's about this long. After you type any more text than this into the source engine console, it will start getting cut off. So that is where I start using nested alias commands. So I have this alias here called master. And master runs down here. And all of these random letters and stuff, this is another alias command, which comes down to here. So alias nested in an alias nested in an alias. And I did this is very messy because I kept running out of space, and I just kept kind of duct taping it back together. So you see, like, here I have another alias. So, like, master2 is an alias. It gets ugly. It gets ugly. But using these aliases, we have basic HTML figured out, which is nice, you know. But now I want to implement interaction, I guess, and I did that via JavaScript. This is where, like, I had my biggest hang up. This is where I spent the most time on this project, is getting JavaScript to work properly. So the reason this sucks is because for some reason, the source engine console does this weird sanitization stuff for special characters sometimes. So look at this. If I run the echo command, I'm not great with JavaScript, but to my knowledge, this will execute fine. It doesn't have the ending semicolon, but this will execute just fine. When I press echo, you see that is JavaScript. If I put that into a browser, it would work. But now, when I try to assign this exact line here to an alias, I'll do test1, and that will be echo, yeah. The exact same line here, okay? When I press enter here, and now I run test1, why are there spaces? Oh my gosh. I'm still angry about it. I'm still angry. It's like every special character, so like this, the single quote, the parentheses and stuff will all put spaces before and after them to escape them, I guess. I don't know. And it gets even worse whenever you try to use semicolons. Because the semicolons are necessary to terminate lines in JavaScript. But if you remember from earlier, whenever I'm doing my nested alias commands and stuff, each command is terminated in the source engine console by a semicolon. So it got messy. It was a nightmare. It was like, it felt like I was programming this entire website. Felt like I was trying to make SQL injection work. From like my studies of that. It's just like I was trying to escape filters, except I'm the dude making it. Why are you fighting with me? So eventually, I landed on this absolutely back-assward solution. I wrote a line in JavaScript that worked, and then I base64 encoded it, and I then used this line to decode it and execute it. So so IRB64 here it's just a variable. It's like a string variable that has this function base64 encoded inside of it. So atob, this function will base64 decode this. So now I have a string that just says this function, and then the eval command will execute a string as if it is JavaScript code. Very backwards. And you can even see, like, on the website, I'm still dealing with that stupid... look, if you look in the script, do you see here, like, the eval atob statements, there's spaces in all of them? I just, like, begged and pleaded Chrome to work with me until eventually it did, and it executed this as proper JavaScript. That was my solution. And you see, like, it puts a space before and after the base64 string, which, like, thankfully it just cooperates anyhow. But yeah, absolute nightmare. This made programming an absolute nightmare, because every time I wanted to change one of these lines, I was manually decoding and encoding it, or encoding and decoding it, which stunk. There's definitely better ways to do that, but I didn't do them. So, okay. After that, I guess I'll just walk through, like, the logic of the code pretty much. We have these buttons. These are just standard HTML buttons, and you can see them. Yeah, it's these guys. It's like the movement commands themselves. Once I've placed those buttons down, this is the meat of the code right here. These six alias commands. So I guess I'm getting a little ahead of myself. How did I actually make the web server communicate back with the CSGO server? Because the CSGO is serving HTML, but how am I specifying, okay, HTML using JavaScript, talk back to the CSGO server? And that is with fetch requests. So I really don't know too much about JavaScript fetch requests, but pretty much you can send various HTTP requests, like whatever you want to whatever address you want. There, in this case here, I am sending it back to localhost on the same port, which this is just specified here in the code, and I embedded the fetch request inside of another function I wrote called instant request. And if you look at this, if you know JavaScript, this fetch request is missing a lot of stuff. The only thing it asks for is the method, which is usually where you put get, post, put, delete, stuff like that. And if you recall from how I did the alias of the get command, I don't care about the rest of the stuff that is sent in like an HTTP request. I can only read the first word. I can only read up to where the first space is. So what I decided to do is just, in the method field, just put random arbitrary stuff. I just put like source engine commands in there. So instead of get or put, it's like walk forward, walk backward, shoot, which I will show. I can actually show in Wireshark here. What packet was that? Okay. I like scrolling down, I guess. 2896. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so if I follow this here, yeah, you see, I'm not sending a get request. I am sending a shoot request. This word shoot is all that matters. The rest of this, you see how it's like unknown command host, unknown command connection and stuff. It's reading. This is like the source engine's response, reading all these commands it doesn't know. None of this matters. None of this matters. The only thing that matters is shoot, because it gets shoot, and there's an alias for that. So, yeah, that's why I've gutted this fetch request and put it into its own function here. And then this line here is what base64 decodes it and makes it run. The next line here is called a delayed request, and what this does is it runs the instant request function again, but it does it on a timeout delay in JavaScript. And you're maybe wondering, why am I doing this? I'm stupid. How a lot of these source engine commands work. There's a shoot command, right? Like when you go onto my web server here and you press the shoot button, you see I only shoot once, maybe a couple of times. In the source engine console, if I type in shoot and press enter, I just, hold it down. So I have to do then minus shoot, or it's, I forget what it actually is, but there's a command to start shooting and then there's a command to stop shooting. And in order to implement that, I was thinking, okay, is there just a delay function in the source engine console that I could use? Because that would be awesome. I can make an alias shoot, alias wait 200 milliseconds, alias stop shooting. Cannot do that. Unfortunately, CSGO removed that, like the timeout feature in the source engine console. It exists in some source games, but not this one because it's like, people could use it to cheat too easily. So instead, that delay is handled client side through JavaScript. So like if I go to sources here, if I do shoot, you see I send two requests. This for and you see them they pop up like one right after another. I send a shoot request, and then I send a stop shoot request. And that really stinks because then I'm relying on like TCP to get there on time, and I'm relying on the browser to send both requests properly. So there are times where if you press the button like too many times in a row, you could just get stuck doing something. Like, and you notice I press look left. Sometimes I look a lot. Other times I look very little. Yeah, that's because I'm like relying on JavaScript waiting instead of source engine waiting. And I guess I didn't cover that very well. This line here, this both request, this is the bread and butter here. I send this function sends instant request, sends the delayed request, and then you specify the delay. So this is like where I've stitched both of these two functions together, and this is how pretty much every button on the site works. So I press the walk forward button, walks forward a little, and then stops. Yeah. I wish I did not have to do it this way. I really do. Because this is already really hard to do running locally. Imagine having this, having this run over the internet. God forbid running over YouTube stream delay. This was like the worst thing ever. I watched it took people like 15, 20 minutes to kill a single bot. So, but okay. After that, that's the bread and butter. Now we just get into the rest of these commands. You see that here's an example here. I get the button that I put, the button ID with shoot that I put up here earlier, button ID shoot. I bind that here. I add an event listener on click of this button to send the both requests shoot, stop, shoot, 10 millisecond delay. So that's pretty much how the button works. Sends shoot, stops, and then sends it again. You'll notice here I put spaces right here before and after shoot. That's again because of the stupid source engine escape whatever. And there's again better way to do this. I just gave up and I knew this would run. So now you can see I have that for shoot. I have it for forward. I have it for backwards, left, right, and everything. All the buttons. There are some buttons here like the different slot buttons. I have buttons to switch your inventory slot. Yeah, I have buttons to swap your slots, and those don't need 2 requests because there's only, it's like you don't, that's not a toggle. You just press it, it happens, it's done. So that's only an instant request. But yeah, I think that's like for the JavaScript part of the source code. That is it. I think the rest of the source code down here, once you've gone through all of these buttons, and I guess these are the methods that get sent. So like you see here, or I see here, I send the slot 3 a request down here, or I guess that's the bad example. Here I have the stop jump. Jump and stop jump is sent by the jump button. I bind those via an alias to plus jump and minus jump. Yeah. So that is how it works, I guess. Now I just have a couple various extra notes that I wanted to show off. First, why is the Wireshark output ugly? Like this was the stream I just followed to, this is the shoot HTTP request. Why is none of it HTTP? I don't know. I want to figure it out more. I'm pretty sure it's just because of the, it's because I'm doing that content length header thing instead of terminating the socket. So Wireshark is getting confused because I'm technically not sending an HTTP request. I'm technically just like dumping stuff and never terminating the socket. I'm pretty sure that's why it is the way that it is, but I don't know. Oh yeah, CORS, cross-origin resource sharing. I thought this was gonna be an issue. I was worried that like sending the request in JavaScript, I was gonna get a CORS issue here. I don't know anything about CORS. I just know I didn't get an issue, and I'm very thankful because I didn't want to have to learn about it. I guess there were 2 more things about the source code I wanted to talk about. First, you see all of these what appear to be failed requests to localhost. Every time you press one of these buttons, I'll refresh the page here. Every time you press one of these buttons, you see fail. These aren't actually failed because they're doing what I want them to do. Because obviously, like, the GET request responds with HTML. The GET request responds with proper or an HTTP response. It looks good. So that's why I don't get an error when I send the GET request up here. But I didn't program that in for the shoot buttons and stuff because I didn't really care for an HTTP response there. I didn't need it. because all I needed was the game to shoot. So obviously the browser is going to think, hey, this is weird because I didn't get anything in return. I just got a bunch of like random jargon, but it works in the game. So these aren't actually issues for our use case here. One of the other things I wanted to talk about, how I have this running right now, there's no elegant way to point the CSGO server back, or there's no elegant way to point the JavaScript towards your CSGO client. And where I have local host here, I have it, base 64 encoded. Anytime I've wanted to change IPs, I decode this line, change the host, and then re-encode it. There's more elegant ways to do that, but I gave up effort. What I had running originally to make this cooperate over the internet is I had my IP hooked up to a DNS record, and then that DNS record, I could just update that DNS record whenever I was like switching the laptop I was using as the workhorse for this. That is probably what you should do if you're running this for any extended amount of time, but you should not be running this for any extended amount of time. So, for how the Steam setup works, this is just in order to install CSGO Legacy, you have to install, I think, just normal Counter-Strike 2, and then you can select it in properties, betas, something like that. I forget where the button is. Updates, maybe? No. I don't know. You have, game versions and betas, if I could read. Yeah, you have to select CSGO Legacy here. So that makes a storage requirement of like 80 gigabytes, which sucks because you can't run this on like a Raspberry Pi or something if you've got to fork over 80 gigabytes. There is a way using like Steam Depot or something to install only the CSGO Legacy, but I couldn't get it to cooperate. Whenever I did, I would boot in, it would work for 10 seconds, then it would say Steam authentication issue, you're kicked out. And I didn't feel like dealing with it. So yeah, 80 gigabytes, whatever. In the source code, the kill bind does not work. I think I know why, but I'm done working on this, so I didn't really care to find out. Yeah, the respawn here. This is supposed to just run kill. That doesn't work. What does work is this reset game function, which this I wrote kind of ugly because I don't know much about Counter-Strike. The reset game command runs like this stream of commands. And what I hope this does is starts a multiplayer or like a free-for-all deathmatch with bots that do not shoot. I don't know. I had ChatGPT help me with that, so I'm not 100% sure how it works. There's more elegant ways to do it, and it's probably missing. It probably has a lot of mistakes. But this was, it kind of works. The idea was that if you got, like, if I'm live streaming this on YouTube and I'm asleep and the game kicks you out or whatever, you just hit the reset game command and it would spit you back in. There's no buttons to look up and down. There's only look left and right in the game. That is because there's no elegant way to look left or look up and down from the console. Like, the look left and look right buttons are literally just plus right, minus right. That's all that it takes. There's no plus up, minus up, and unfortunately. So only left and right. And I think Dust is a pretty good map for that because there are some like hills that you can get like lineups for. Yeah, having the reset button there is kind of scary, especially when you're hosting this on YouTube because everybody's controlling the same person, so it makes griefing really easy because you can just keep spamming that button and it will just, nobody can play. Luckily, I'm not popular enough for that to have become an issue, but something, you may think about. So, yeah, okay. Now I'm going to talk about why I think this is cool, and I'm going to get into the last thing, which is security. I think this is cool because there's absolutely no middleman. There is no middle in between CSGO and the web browser. If I were to set up like a basic Python server here, this would be beyond trivial to do. You could set up a Python server that interprets that can emulate a keyboard, and you could do this for any game if you're okay with having a middleman like that. I didn't really want to go that route. I thought that was kind of boring. So I just decided to, strictly CSGO. And that's why, there's a lot of the issues like that JavaScript wait function that is so ugly. The IP switching issue, that is so ugly. But, this is more like the heart and soul. And then what was the other thing I wanted to say? Okay. I guess now to get into security here. This is the most insecure thing of all time, and I had it up as a gamble. I was watching this like a hawk. The moment this thing caught on fire and started spreading, I was gonna shut it down, and thankfully no one was smart enough to do that. Not smart enough, no one was unhinged enough to do that. So I go to this in a web browser, it pulls all this up because of the alias command. But when I was hosting this externally, anybody can still netcat into the developer console. Anybody can, that's not how Clear works. Anybody can come in here and start screwing with things. So as an example, someone random on the internet could connect, they start spamming kill, they start switching the map, they start, going crazy. On its own, I thought about that and I was like, yeah, that's okay. They're just gonna be screwing up the game. That's no worries. I was actually really cool. I had this one viewer that didn't figure this out, but he figured out how to. He was sending JavaScript commands through the browser console, and he had enabled no clip, enabled wireframe. I thought that was really cool to see. I think CV, it's just pause. I don't know. There's a pause. Or did it pause? There's a pause command that will just pause the whole server. But I thought that was cool. Somebody had figured that out. However, there are a couple more concerns than that. Hypothetically, my friend brought this up to me. Actually, I thought this was funny. I didn't think of this. I had this set up with a Steam account that was not in offline mode because of that authentication issue. So somebody could, I think, hypothetically, there's a command that you could connect to a server, an actual CSGO server, not a CSGO client running as a server, but an actual multiplayer server. And if you connect me to one that's showing horrible stuff when I'm away from the keyboard, and then there's extreme terrorist messages on the screen, my YouTube account will get banned. So that would kind of stink. The issue that I thought up was the fact that you could if you just run the alias command here, it will spit out every single alias that's here. So I was effectively letting anybody who understands how this works and can connect, which is anybody, they can just change my source code. They can rewrite my website. So alias I5 I hate you and want you to die. Is that gonna work? And then I refresh. Yeah. Okay, well no, it can I just not read? Yeah, okay, but you get the idea. Because now it's the unknown command. I screwed up the length of the Oh yeah, I forgot the echo. It's been a couple weeks since I made this. I am yeah, here it is. So somebody could come in and just rewrite this, which then they could deface it. That's one thing. But what if they rebound one of these? They figured out how cores works, and they rebound one of these to send your cookies to an attacker server. That would suck. So yeah, don't host this. Don't host this online. Or if you do, figure out something. If there was ever a reason I put a middleman Python server in here, it would be for security reasons like this. But yeah, that is that is it, really. I guess I had a friend that wanted to read this. I forget what this said before. I'm sorry. And a friend, yeah, they wanted to read this. You can take your screenshot now, and then I guess you guys can just. I'm gonna get one bot kill here, and then just to put out there how agonizing this is, and then and this is without input delay or like without much, and then I will call it there. So yeah, like the buttons. Because you can't like hold the buttons down in JavaScript because it's sending a request, and I didn't feel like figuring out how to do that elegantly. Every time you press it, it just holds it for a couple of milliseconds, and so I just press it like a jag off multiple times, and it's impossible. You cannot use the look left and right to aim. It's strictly for movement because it's so variable how far you'll look every time that you can't. If there's an enemy there, you have to pretty much just like crosshair one direction, just position yourself. And there's a couple people that had like almost weaponized this stuff. Like what somebody did, they switched to slot 3, switched to their knives, and then pressed the shoot button a bunch of times, and then they got the knife stuck like firing over and over again repeatedly, and then they had like then they focused just on walking into somebody, which I thought was really cool. And I'm really surprised. I'm really happy with the amount of people that tuned in. I couldn't sleep for like 2 days because I was so infatuated watching people like play the game, and I was like, oh, I have to make sure that it doesn't, nothing goes wrong. And that kind of screwed me over. It was like a week of my life that I lost almost. But now, the moment we've been waiting for, it's as easy as that. I'm a professional. Thanks for watching, everybody. If you've made it this far, if you have, you're probably batshit. Have a good day.